guys. Let me get set up here. Now, before I dive into everything that I want to talk about, before we get into the meat and potatoes of what I am about to say, I want to start this off by saying I'm not here to talk about my political views. I don't care who you voted for. If your guy lost, I'm sorry, try again in 4 years. If he won, cool. I am here to only talk about the executive order that Biden signed phasing out private prisons. That's it. That's all I want to talk about. You know, I believe in bipartisanship. I believe in working together to find common ground and to end the things that I so passionately care about. This whole channel is about sharing my experience with prison and addiction and mental health. Those are the things I care about, you know, and I just want to start this off with saying I'm a little nervous to talk about this because politics can make people crazy. I don't care about politics. And I just care about people. I care about the people, and I care about the things that are happening today. I don't care about what happened in 1994 with Joe Biden's crime bill. I care about what he's doing right now and how it affects my people in prison. You know, and I do also want to say that it's so important to vote at the federal level, but it's also very important to vote locally. And we're going to get into all of that. We're going to get into what the president can and can't do and how we need to start working within our local government to change the laws and the policies in state prisons. So let me get into my live stream so I can see your comments. I'm freaking blind. So 1 second. I have not live streamed on this channel in probably a year or so. It's been a really long time, so I'm a little nervous to live stream on here. The last time that I was live, it was very overwhelming for me. Why can't I get into my live stream? I'm in my creator studio trying to get into my live stream, and it's not working. I mean, the audacity. It's me. Long pause. Okay. I'm just gonna have to go in the live stream like everyone else. YouTube is weird. YouTube is mad weird. Okay, there I am. Okay, here we are. Got the live stream pulled up. So it doesn't look like I'm looking at you, but I am because I'm blind. Also, thank you for the super chats. Please don't send those. Let me get out everything that I wanted to say. I don't want to miss anyone. So I'm going to go over everything. I'm going to read an article, give you my opinions. Then we're going to go to comments. So if you don't mind, please don't send super chats because I don't want to miss them. Thank you, Laura, so much. So let's hold all of that stuff for the end. And then I'll get into your guys' thoughts and what you guys are talking about. So if you are watching the playback, please know that we are not talking about politics. And for those in the live stream, please remind new people coming in that we're only talking about this executive order and help me through this. Help me through this, you guys. The ride or dies are here to help me. So I'm going to be reading an article that I just pulled up. I don't know if this is right wing or left wing. Again, I'm not part of that group. I believe in bipartisanship. So I don't know where this article came from. It was just the first one that I saw. Non-biased article from The Hill, which is the first thing that pulled up on Google. So I'm going to read that to you guys, and then we're going to talk about everything else. And then, of course, I'll go to your questions and comments and all of that. Okay. President Biden on Tuesday ordered the Department of Justice, or DOJ, to phase out private prisons. The executive order, signed alongside 3 others as part of an effort to address racial inequality, largely returns to the Department of Policy adopted under the Obama administration. To decrease incarceration levels, we must reduce profit-based incentives to incarcerate by phasing out federal government's reliance on privately operated criminal detention facilities. I don't like criminal, whatever. Okay. The order directs DOJ not to renew any of the contracts with private prisons that house federal inmates, roughly 14,000 out of the 2 million incarcerated in America. What is that, 8%, 7%? Criminal justice reform advocates say the move is an important first step in reducing reliance on private prisons, which critics argue have little accountability and whose models are incapable of rehabilitating offenders. Some warn the order will not only have a limited impact particularly given the lengths of the contracts that may have been signed under the Trump administration. Just to pause there, they were signed under the Trump administration. Again, I don't care who you voted for. That's not what we're going to talk about. But these contracts were renewed under the Trump administration, giving private prisons access to lengthy contracts, 10-year contracts. And we're going to get into that in a second. That's just 9% of the federal prison population, and many of those contracts are 10-year contracts, and some of them were recently signed, this person said. The order also appears to be limited to the DOJ, allowing the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, specifically to continue the use of private prisons. It would also not apply to any state or local level decision-making jurisdictions that are responsible for the bulk of the U.S. prison and jail population. If you're just jumping on, I caught that comment. We're not talking about politics. I'm talking about one executive order. My channel is focused around prison reform, and we're talking about this specific order and how it applies to 8% of the prison population right now. So, moving on. That's kind of all this article says. So, let's talk about executive orders. Executive orders. Am I crooked? Hold on. Okay, executive orders are great for 4 years or whatever if a new person is brought in, if a new person is elected. So an executive order is only good for that president's term, okay? So Biden came in, signed 13 executive orders, and we're only talking about the prison one today or ever. So if the next president wants to come in and be like, we like for-profit prisons, he could just throw that out. So while this is a very important first step, this is just an executive order. What needs to happen now is legislation beyond the executive order. So in order to phase out private prisons, it has to be done gradually. It has to be done in a way that allows inmates to be safe. So like I said in the beginning, if your president, the president you voted for lost, wait 4 years. If you don't like this policy, wait 4 years. You know, there's so many checks and balances. And we're going to talk about what private prisons are, how they're run, and why they are so bad in a second. But I do just want to mention that I don't even know where I was going because I read the comments and I shouldn't have. There are so many things a president can and can't do, okay? So a president cannot make large sweeping motions to phase out prisons across this country. They can only do things at the federal level. That is the power the president has. He cannot say, I want Iowa to do this in their state prisons because we are the United States of America. So when I say that it's important to vote at the federal level and it's equally important to vote at the state level, I mean that. It is very important to research the bills that they're trying to pass, vote in your local people so that they can, start to make the progress for state prisons, which is the majority of inmates. Most people are serving time in jails, county jails, or state prisons. So while this is a really great first step, this is a fraction of what needs to happen. Okay, this is a speck, right? Because we're talking about less than 8%, and 8% in total are in a private prison. 1% federally are in a federal private prison. So let's talk about why private prisons are bad in the first place. Private prisons are bad because their goal is to increase revenue. When all you care about is your bottom line, people are going to suffer. So private prisons provide less training for officers, which is extremely dangerous to the officers that work in that unit. And if you don't care about inmates or you don't care about, their life inside of prison, at the very least, you need to care about the correctional officers working behind those walls. When you have less training for your officers, you put them in danger. Training costs money. Okay. If you're just coming in, I'll read your comments at the end. Please let me get out what I'm trying to say. I appreciate you all for being in here and commenting. I want to get this all out so that people watching the playback, can digest this in a better way. I know live streams are, difficult to watch in the playback. So when we have less training for officers, it's extremely dangerous for them. They don't know how to handle situations that are thrown at them every single day. And what's really sad about that is I interviewed a correctional officer. Her name is Kim. I love her to death, but she was not provided any training when it comes to how to handle an inmate on inmate fight. She was only told how to block a punch, so she doesn't know how to handle, a lot of situations that go on, whether that is flooding a tier, a riot, inmates fighting or attacking you. And that is just a really important piece to prison. We need to train our officers. We need to take care of our officers, pay them well, which is another issue with private prisons is correctional officers are not being paid adequately. They need to be taken care of. They need training to combat inmate manipulation, physical violence, all kinds of things. So I think it's very important. Correctional officers are the backbone of facilities, and they need to be trained properly so that they can be safe and go home to their families. Okay, and private prisons do not do that because that costs money. Okay, private prisons also have like zero safety measures. Now, I've spoke to a lot of officers that work in private prisons where they don't have the fire spigot things. They only have a fire extinguisher at the officer desk. A fire extinguisher. Come on, you guys, we're talking about like basic safety precautions. If there is a fire, it's important to have a system in that prison so that the fire can be put out, right? I mean, it's very basic stuff that we're talking about. Another thing that private prisons don't do is they don't have much oversight when it comes to living conditions. Now, as per inmate rights, they have the right to not be sexually assaulted, verbally assaulted, physically assaulted, and clean living conditions is an inmate right. So when you have cockroaches and mice and mold and condemned places or condemned dorms that, are just filled with asbestos and all this other things that I've seen in so many prisons across this country, that is against the law. And quite often when we're talking about prison reform, people want to scream about money, but they're unwilling to do anything else when it comes to prison reform. They're like, I don't want my tax dollars going to that. We don't care about safety measures, shouldn't have broken the law. But the states are breaking the laws every single day when they're not only exposing the inmates to these unthinkable living conditions, but the correctional officers have to work in these conditions as well. So again, if you don't care about the inmates, at the very least, you need to care about the correctional officers that go in there every single day and have to work in conditions with mice and cockroaches and asbestos and mold. That creates danger for every single person in there, whether that is an inmate, a correctional officer, a nurse, a doctor, a janitor, whatever, whoever is working in there, it creates a danger to everyone. So limited safety measures, limited oversight, less training for officers, all of that goes on in private prisons because their sole objective is to improve their bottom line. And that is why ending private prisons is huge, okay? Is huge. But again, unfortunately, the federal government can only do so much. So while this is a very tiny group of people, we need to start making changes at our state level. Again, I don't care who you voted for. I don't care. I don't care about politicians pass bills. I care what's happening right now, right today. I believe in bipartisanship, working together, reading these bills, and working as a team to end private prisons, to help the mentally ill, to get treatment for drug addicts. Those are the things I care about. Everything else, whatever. And I think the number one thing that we need to do is work together. Work together. I am not a Republican. I am not a liberal. I'm a human being that wants to see our country do better. There's a lot of pros and there's a lot of cons, and we're doing some things right, but we're doing some things really wrong, and we're failing with our prison system. And if you guys have watched me for any length of time, you know how passionate I am about prison reform and how important this is. But this is a baby step in the right direction. This is going to take years to phase out private prisons, which, I'll wait. I'm willing to talk about this for the rest of my life, which I do know that I will be talking about. And yes, I'll get to comments. I see you guys. I am going to get to comments. So what we need to do is pass laws and legislations to prevent people from going to prison in the first place. Half of all incarcerated citizens are serving time on a nonviolent drug offense, meaning that they are drug addicts that need treatment. So when we're talking about states that have made a difference, Oregon is the top of the list. They have decriminalized all drugs, meaning there's not going to be a cocaine store. It just means if you are caught in small possession of a substance, an assessment will be done and you will get the option to go to treatment. That is being funded by cannabis sales in that state. So I think Oregon, I think that's a huge first step. Are there problems with that? Absolutely. Are there people going to fall in kind of a gray area? And are some people going to take advantage of new laws that are being passed? Yep, like everything else, okay? What we need to do is help the majority of people, those that want the help, those that need the help. And if help was offered to me in my active addiction, I probably would have taken it, but I was never offered help. And I 100% deserve to go to prison because I was a drug dealer and I was always seen as a drug dealer first. I knew that, I accepted that responsibility, I went to prison and I deserve to go to prison. So all of the laws and all of the changes that I talk about that are happening on this earth, all of the changes that are happening wouldn't have affected me back then. I'm not fighting for me. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about helping the people that were there and using my own experience to, hopefully make you guys think about it deeper. So while it's important to vote federally, I think it's more important to vote state to state. We're the United States of America. And the federal government does not have that much power. If you want to see changes in your state and your prisons, vote local. Research these people that are running for public office in your local state. So the last thing I'm going to say before I read your comments is it's okay if we disagree on politics. I'm not red. I am not blue. I'm freaking purple. I believe in bipartisanship, like I said a million times. And I don't like everything that every president has done. I've disagreed with so many things on both sides. And that's okay. That's okay. We can disagree. No politician is my Jesus. You know what I mean? So I'm just saying. I want to go to your comments before I read them. One more thing. I think it's going to take us 2 decades to fix the damage that has been done by, by our laws and the damage that has been done as far as incarceration. What's really unfortunate is our prison system has created a generational problem. Okay, so not only is a mother or a father going to prison, but their children see that as well. And before you're like, shouldn't have broken the law, I don't want to hear that shit. We have to spend the same amount of time and energy that we spent locking these people up in rehabilitating them. So we are going to have a fight on our hands. Moving away from private prisons is a very crucial first step, but there is so much more work to be done. There is so much more work to be done. 2 decades, yeah. The first crime bill was signed in the 80s, and our prison population increased by 500% because of the war on drugs. It is going to take a very long time to fix the damage that has been done with our prison systems. The United States incarcerates more citizens per capita than any other nation in the world. So this is not going to change overnight. This is going to take years and years and years to fix the generational problems that are set in place, as well as all of the damage that has been done to people today, not to mention their children. That's where the generational problem comes in. The way that we view people that have been incarcerated is a huge problem. We tend to just stereotype people and think, oh, if you went to prison, you're a horrible human being. But I've met some of the most creative, talented, smart, wise, kind people in prison because half are nonviolent offenders. So at the very least, if you don't care about prison reform and you're pissed off that tax dollars go to prison, then you should be equally passionate about rehabilitation, because most people have a release date. So if most people have a release date, but we're putting them in prison, traumatizing them, beating them, belittling them, that's a hard word to say for some reason. If we're torturing them, causing trauma, 60% have PTSD when they leave, and then we're pushing them into society, labeling them as a felon, telling them we're not going to hire you or rent to you or any of that because you have this minor drug charge, we create more obstacles and more barriers, and that disconnect between a felon and society is huge. We need to bridge that gap, and we need to rethink reentry programs. Now, when you go to prison, no one gives a shit about reentry until you're 60 days to the door. Now, reentry should look like, hold on a second. Reentry programs should start from day one. Day one, when you get arrested, how are we going to keep you out of prison? What are we doing to help you? It's not a premiere. I'm just not reading comments until I'm done saying what I want to say. How can we help people? How can we help drug addicts, which is 1.2 or 3 million people that are in jails and prisons, so half of the prison population are drugs. So reentry is seen as like a 60-day program that you take at the end of your sentence. So when we're talking about prison reform, while this is a very important bill, it's also important to note that we need to fight for prison, reentry, job training, and job placement programs. A lot of people violate their parole for selling drugs to pay their bills. Okay, so when you get out of prison, you have parole fees, parole fines, court costs, restitution, and there's a million different other things you have to pay for, but then no one wants to hire you. That is problem number one. So, we find that, 65 to 70% of people will reoffend. And that is simply because life outside is so unbelievably difficult when people don't want to give you a second chance. Everyone loves a comeback story, but no one wants to help on the come up. Why? Why? So reentry needs to look like job training and job placement, as well as therapy, drug education, and drug treatment programs. And, I've met a lot of people that are able to get medication in prison because, the state is covering that cost. And then when they get out, they can't get their medication, whether that is for ADHD, schizophrenia, bipolar, depression, things like that. And then they're not able to get that medication and they reoffend. Most people that I've done time with have some form of mental illness, whether that is trauma, depression, everything I just mentioned. So when we treat them and we give them medication and then we push them out into the world and we don't give them that medication again, what is going to happen? So, we really need to, one, reduce our prison population. That's going to reduce cost. Two, give them the treatment that they need from day one. And I really hope that you guys will research this more. I hope that you will look into this bill. I hope that you will, read these articles and research and vote local and fight with me. I'm just one person. Together we can make a difference. And I love you guys for listening to me rant and rave about this for 20 minutes. I appreciate all of you for being on here. I was absolutely terrified to talk about this because politics can bring out the worst in people. But if we are going to make a change, it starts today. It starts now. And like I said, it's going to take probably fucking 2 decades to fix the damage that the prison system has done, but together we can make a difference. So I'm going to read your comments. I love you guys. Feel free to ask me questions now, and I'm going to read them. Ro and Adam, hey you guys, congratulations on your baby. I love you guys so much. Can't wait to see you again. I miss you. Wow, the comments are going super fast. I'm glad I'm blind and I couldn't read them while I was looking at the screen. Please save this live. I'm absolutely saving this live. How does an inmate get sent to a private prison as opposed to a federal prison? Well, there are federal private prisons, okay? That's like 1% of the prison population at the federal level and roughly 8% state level. You don't really get a say. They just send you wherever they're going to send you. And in the federal system, they send you all over the freaking place. In the state system, you usually just go to the state prison that like you're close to. There's a lot more state facilities for men than there are women. So there was only, a 50-50 chance I was going to go to the 2 prisons in Arkansas or, the couple of different prisons in New York. So not a lot of options for women. As for men, you don't choose or anything. They just like send you there. Private prisons exist to create a profit. And that's really the only reason, because this country saw a money-making opportunity in the prison system when the war on bills, surged the prison population by like 500% or something ridiculous. And capitalism. So that's why. How are people in prison dealing with COVID-19? I can only speak for the people that I currently talk to in prison. My friend Jason recently had COVID. He got over it, but he's been locked down a lot. I'm very proud to say that the federal prison system has been allowing free phone calls. So Jason is able to call me every day for free, but for 10 minutes. So typically the calls are 15 minutes only, and you only get like 200 minutes, 300 minutes. I didn't do federal time, but you only get a certain amount of minutes every month in the federal system. At Rowan Adam are in here, they can tell you how many minutes you get. So that the phone call was cut down to 10 minutes, but we can talk for free, and they're locked down and they can come out for an hour or two a day, not on the weekends, I think. So 300 minutes. Okay, thank you. Yes, I like Metallica. Yes. How do they choose if a person goes to federal or state? That's a great question that I'm horrible at answering. The federal system can pick up, oh God, I'm so bad at answering this. The federal government can pick up a lot of different cases. They can pick up gun cases. They can pick up robbery if you cross state lines, which is what Adam did, and he went to the feds. They can decide to pick up certain cases. There's a lot of white collar crimes, which people think is all that is in the federal system, but drug charges, conspiracy charges, like conspiracy to deliver drugs, what was I going to say? That can go federal. State is everything else. I'm so bad at explaining that. How is Jason? He's good. He's doing really good. He comes home soon, and I will be filming all of that and crying. And I've never even given Jason a hug. We didn't get along in the street, and what's funny is he's my best friend now. So just the fact that I'm going to be able to hug him, and his daughter and I are going to be able to go pick him up, like I'll cry if I start thinking about it, but all of that will be filmed for you guys. He is so excited to learn about YouTube. He's so excited to come on YouTube. He's always asking me questions on YouTube, which are adorable questions that I'm like, what? How do you not know that? Super cute. But YouTube wasn't a big thing in 2011, really. We didn't know anyone that was doing this full time. So, oh my gosh, the questions go by so fast. Jen is here. If you guys are not subscribed to Jen Cutting, what are you even doing with your life? I love her. It's sick AF when the government is making profit off people that need help physically and mentally. Yeah. P90 is in the house. What's up, homie? What else do you think Biden will do towards prison reformment? I don't know. We're just going to have to wait and see. While this executive order is great, it can be thrown out in 4 years. So in the meantime, we need to pass legislation that will stick, that will reduce the amount of people going to prison, right? And that's changing our drug laws and providing treatment for those that need help for mental illness and all of that. So this executive order does not affect that many people. It does not affect state or local jurisdictions. It does not affect the majority of the prison population, which is very unfortunate, but it's a great first step, So that's why it's important to vote locally. This is only affecting about 1% of the prison population right now, so it's not a lot. But I'm grateful for every single step, because every single step is a step, to get to where we need to go. It's a step towards the finish line, which is prison reform and in helping people live better and more healthy lives, And it's not just helping inmates, it's helping the correctional officers that have to work in these disgusting conditions. It's not fair to anyone. It's not fair to the guards. It's not fair to the inmates or staff that work on the property, nurses, and all of that. So I'm grateful for every single baby step, every single one. Someone asked above, what would most private prisons release, or what do the phasing out look like? Phasing out, I'm concerned about that as well, because a lot of private prisons signed a 10-year long contract under the Trump administration to continue the use of private prisons. So I'm not sure how those contracts would work. I'm not sure if we're going to have to wait 10 years or if those contracts are void. I really don't know, but that's a great question. I'm going to look more into that and see if like what's happening with the current contracts, because that is what I'm concerned about. You know, how is it affecting the contracts that were just renewed in 2019? So thoughts on Illinois criminal justice reform law passed last week. I'm going to do an entire video on that. Hey, Gretchen. Hello. Okay, do you guys have any more questions? I want to keep this short so that people can watch the playback. So do you have any more questions for me before I jump off of here? Wow, they go so fast. Just got here. Can you recap? You can watch the whole replay. I'm about to get off of here so that you guys can do that. Jason's release date, he wants private for right now, which soon. That's all I can say. The last update on Randy is the current update. Unfortunately. It's the worst type of prison. Yes. Just kidding. Private prison is the worst type of prison for all the reasons that I mentioned. How do you think parole should operate? Parole should operate. Parole should be there to help the parolee, not to breathe over the parolee and intimidate them and scare them and put them back in prison for technical violations. For those of you that don't know, technical violations are breaking curfew, failing a drug test, not having a job. Those are technical violations. Being around a felon is a technical violation, and a lot of people go back to prison on technical violations. Parole should look like the parole officer working in tandem with the parolee to help them find a job, to help them if they're not feeling okay, to get them therapy if they need it, to get them into treatment if they need it. New York has made a lot of changes in its parole system since I was there. You know, they are now trying to help people that are failing drug screens. Instead of locking them up, they're trying to help them get into treatment centers. That's what parole should look like. Parole should be there to help the parolee. Cat, right? Is it Cat? Yeah, I'm gonna call you Catty. Just kidding. Thank you for using your platform to spread awareness. So glad to hear your point of view on this. Let's all push our local government for new legislation. Yes, yes, please, please. Because that's the majority of people. That is who is most affected, is state and local government, or state and local jails and prisons. That's what we need to push for. So absolutely. Squirrel? Your name is Squirrel? I love you. I love your name. Keep fighting, you're not alone, but you are one of our biggest voices. Thank you. Thank you. What can we do from overseas? Oh, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. God, that's a really good question. I don't have an answer for you because you can't vote if you're not in this country, right? I'll get back to you on that. I think just being open-minded and hearing all of the mistakes that we're making in America on our prison system, I think that's great. I think it's important to be informed, and I appreciate you, and I'm so grateful that you're listening to, you know, all of my stories and everything that I have to say. Don, I see you. I see you in every video. Thank you so much for supporting me. Kate, not Cat. I'm gonna call her Catty. I'm sorry. Did I miss a super chat? Oh, I did. I'm sorry. What do you think we can do with children and youth to prevent adult incarceration? That's a great question. That's a great question. In order to help children not go to prison, first thing we need to do is give them a childhood they don't have to recover from, because trauma is a gateway drug, right? And because of the war on drugs, if you are a struggling addict, you're likely to get arrested. So I think the first thing is giving our children, giving them a childhood they don't need to recover from. I think that's the first thing. Limiting trauma, giving them the resources they need if they are struggling, being honest with them. You know, I never talked about mental health in my home. I never talked about prison in my house. The only time we talked about prison is when it came on the news and my dad and I debated. You know, my dad is very to to one side. I was very much to the other side, but we would debate. And my dad always told me, debate it from my point of view. And if I couldn't, then he would tell me I didn't know enough about that policy or that law or that to even have an opinion on it. So if you can't debate something from both sides, you don't know enough about it. I could debate any single policy, politician, anything from both sides. And if I can't, I need to do some more research on it. Bipartisanship is how we're going to get things done. We need to stop being like, it's their fault over here. No, it's their fault. No, it's all of our faults. It's all of our faults why we're in the position we're in. We all need to work together and take responsibility and stop blaming everyone else for America's problems with healthcare, with prison reform, with every kind of issue that we're facing right now. It falls on all of us. And bickering back and forth about who's great and who's horrible is not going to do anything. We're just wasting time, So again, I'm going to end this live stream here. I love you guys. Thank you so much for jumping in the live, and please watch the playback if you're just coming in. I want to keep this short so that other people can listen to what I had to say. But I love you, and stay safe, stay sober, whatever that looks like to you, because there are so many different pathways to sobriety and they are all valid. I love you guys. Bye.